would say basically that it's just black people who do not understand yet the system of racism, white supremacy. In other words, we are all victims of the system of racism, white supremacy. The system itself attempts very vigorously to prevent black people from talking about racism as white supremacy and discussing it and in deepening our understanding. And so there are many, many people who do not understand racism, white supremacy, or there are many, many people who do not want to even talk about racism, white supremacy. But I run into people all the time who say, you know, I first heard you 20 years ago, and I knew you were crazy. But now I understand what you're talking about. I had a colleague in psychiatry say to me last year at a medical convention, Dr. Welsing, you have been talking to us for 40 years about racism. I'm finally beginning to understand. This is a colleague in psychiatry. I'm finally beginning to understand what you're talking about. So the fact that there are people who do not understand, that is to be expected. People understand at different rates in different ways relative to what their exact experience is. And so I wouldn't worry as much about the people who don't understand at a given point as those people who do understand persisting in going forward, not banging another black person over the head. If a black person says, look, I don't want to talk about racism, just say fine and move on to the next person who might, like the church says, whosoever will, let him or her come. And so it's okay. I've decided if I have to do it all by myself, I'm going to do it. You know, if nobody else comes along, I'm going to do the best that I can. And so it's just important if somebody doesn't understand racism, doesn't want to talk about it, swears allegiance to something other. You see, because within the programming of the system of racism, white supremacy, there is the illusion of inclusion. There's the fantasy of wanting to believe that we are included. The marches that just took place, that were flooded in many situations with people who classify themselves as white. Many black people were more impressed that it was so many white people with black people that this gave credence to what black people were talking about, without even questioning whether those white people were actually interested in eliminating the system of racism, white supremacy. And I would dare say 99% of them were not. But just the fact that there were white people with black people, that was the most important thing in some people's mind, even though the idea about the march was really being taken in another direction altogether. So I hope that that shed some light on what I feel about. If everybody just decide, if nobody else wants to do anything about racism, white supremacy, just decide as a person that you're not going to engage in the denial and that you're going to maybe just practice not gossiping or you're going to practice not being discourteous. That will have a major energy vibrational impact on the system. Just be willing to persist over time.